Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the True Life Podcast. Hope everybody's having a beautiful day. Hope the sun is shining, the birds are singing. I got a great show for you today. I have with me the incredible Rev Gabriel. For those of you who have been watching the show, you know that Gabriel and I have been here before. But I think that this particular show is going to shatter some boundaries, and I hope that it ignites the consciousness for everybody listening. Rev Gabriel Castillo is a fearless young leader in the psychedelic movement. Gabriel was initiated by the taino curanderos and has a deep connection to the ancient sacred teachings of the mushroom. Gabriel's not here to play it safe. He cuts through the clinical noise, merging ancient wisdom with revolutionary therapy. His tailored protocols ensure each trip is both transformative and secure, pushing the limits of what is possible. As the force behind finally detached in the Church of the Sacred Spore, Gabriel is a beacon of change, bridging indigenous tradition with modern insights. He challenges power structures and societal norms, leading you into the deepest realms of your mind. It's not just another conversation, it's a call to revolutionize our community. We'll dissect Gabriel's cosmic teachings, uncover the raw power of the sacred mushroom, and confront the systemic injustice that seems to be plaguing our society today. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're having a beautiful day. Rev Gabe, how's it going?
Man, it's going really good. Thank you for that beautiful introduction.
Yeah, man, I'm stoked. I'm stoked you're here today. You and I spoke, I don't know, almost about a year ago, maybe a little less than
Mm.
that, but things have been changing quite a bit, man. What's new in your world?
A lot, man, a lot. But at the same time, nothing new, just continuing to listen to the mushroom, but that just keeps unfolding and opening more and more like a lotus flower. So just kind of riding the wave of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. You know, you're a lot of people I talk to have really unique perspectives, and I put you in that group. I think that, when we look at your journey and we look at what you're doing, you seem to me to be like the next evolution of people that are coming up as teachers. And I think you have a different perspective than a lot of people. A lot of people are trapped in this medical community, and in some ways they're hiding behind the ideas of the medical container. But I think the way that you choose to use the medicine and you choose to see it is unique. And I'm curious if we could start off with a question that comes in from our audience, and it says, "What role, in your opinion, do entheogens and psychedelics play in dismantling the structure and control in modern society?"
Hmm. It's a great question. I think they are the way. Um, yeah. So what role? I think they they play the major role, and that's the role that we forgot, which the medicine is here to teach us, and it's a birthright. And if we can approach it with intention as adults, then we can really get the messages from them, and we can have the correct paradigms instilled in us to have the awareness to be able to see and to be in those to live in those insights, and not just to push it away and try to make it something else, to accept what is. Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that, there's often that slogan or that term that comes up that when the student is ready, that the teacher shows up? What kind of people do you feel are being brought to you in some ways, or at are kind of being drawn to you, or what kind of students are you drawn to, or how do you describe that attraction?
Yeah, it's so funny that you say that. I think I mentioned it before when I was speaking with you, but the mushroom a long time ago spoke, and it said I was here to help awaken the teachers. Um, and that's been a constant unraveling, because what that meant, I had to slowly decipher and let the signs show that path. Um, but it's really funny as I see all the people that really came to work with us at Finally Detached. It's a small circle, right? It's not
Right.
a revolving door, but a lot of them were in numerological terms, in numerology, a lot of them were teachers. They were either sevens, 11s, 22s, or 33s, and those are the ones who have the awareness to receive the dialogue. A lot of people haven't gotten to the awareness to be able to
I lost you there for a minute. It looks like we've kind of lost touch with him just for. Oh, now he's back. I lost you there for a minute, Gabe.
Are we here?
Now you're
We're
back.
back, right? Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, I want to make sure we're back strong. All right. Yeah, we're on. I'm connected to 5G, so we should be good. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's been the teachers that have been showing up. Those who are ready, who have done the work, who have been on their journey. You'll see, many start to get the awareness that they're there, but there's something else. And when that question permeates, that's who I'm here for, right? For the few who will help awaken the many. That's really how I see the role of what I play. So I'm not meant to be in the face and the forefront. I'm here to help teach this relationship and help teach how to open up that channel and how to show how to integrate it into the here and now. And that doesn't mean accepting the dogmas of here and now. That means internalizing, creating and seeing the path for yourself and being able to bring it back into here and now to create that path or that exit strategy for those who can then follow in your footsteps. But they can't do it unless someone else already did it.
Yeah, I see I see that same thread happening in society where there seems to be a sort of incoherence or a sort of like unwillingness for people in positions of authority to relinquish power. And when they do that, they're not passing on the knowledge to the next generation. And it kind of sounds like when you are teaching young people that want to be teachers, like that is a transfer of knowledge. And like that seems like it's been missing in our society for quite some time. And you see it in the world of politics where we have all these like octogenarians, people in their 80s that are like, I'm still in charge, and like the younger generation is eagerly and, in my opinion, has been patiently waiting to be the people that start making the decisions. It kind of sounds like teaching the teachers is passing down knowledge for the next class of people to be ready to learn to teach. What do you think?
Absolutely. That's what it is. It's the future, just awakening the future warriors, but teaching them, how to just laying that path. Because if you don't lay the path, then they can be lost to it, right? It can just become an ego game where everyone's trying to outcompete one another or create their type of process or protocol, and then it completely misses the mark. So that's funny because you said a lot of people, they want to be teachers. We've been able to really decipher those who want to be teachers and those that actually are.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Maybe you
And
could unpack that a little
that's
bit.
a
Yeah.
big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people have the idea of themselves and where they want to go, but they don't know how to get out of their own way. And the final straw of getting out of your own way is to be able to accept the destruction of yourself. And a lot of people want to be teachers, but they want to still be connected. And they can be, but that all that is a fear mechanism. We like to teach people once you accept that destruction, nothing changes, but yet everything changes because the only thing that energy was living on was within you. It was the decision, that last fear factor in the back of your mind, that once you crack that open, you have free energy. There's nothing blocking your energy. There's no decisions that are being made from fear because it doesn't live inside of you anymore. So it's more those who are ready to destroy themselves are actually the ones who will find themselves. It's such a paradox.
It is. It's interesting to think about, and it ties in with ideas of surrender and letting go and, having the courage to have the lived experience. And I see so many of these same patterns. Like, if you're find yourself on a journey that's maybe 10 grams or 15 grams deep, you have to surrender. You have to let go. And on some ways that echoes the way that it takes to be a leader in society. Like you have to be willing to let go of everything, whether it's your family relationships, whether it's your ideas of what work are, whether it's your ideas of who you are, which is a big one. Only then can you really begin to discover what you're capable of. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. Only then you can discover what you're capable of, and then only then you can discover what actually the world needs, because then you're out of the way. Then you can see everything that's happening from a new perspective. You can just see it all working. And then you can see maybe the ideas that you were trapped on and stuck in. And you may start to understand why things move a certain way. And then you just start to gain the awareness of, okay, how do I attack this?
Yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about. When I talk to you, I get this different idea that, you know, and I know that this idea is out there somewhat, but on some level, maybe entheogens and psychedelics are for people that want to lead the way. Maybe they're not for everybody. Maybe it's not a tool for someone to, you know, build a better mousetrap. Maybe it's a tool for someone who wants to and has the courage to lead the way. What do you think?
It's funny that you say that. I I personally agree. I feel that from a shamanic perspective, because I know
Right?
these plants should be respected. And, there's many who aren't even in the space to even fully receive what it is. And once they take it, they say, oh, I did it. I've been there, I've done that. And now they're operating and spreading disease and misinformation from their learned experience, but they didn't even get there. So I think it's very the fact that it's to respect it means that, yeah, maybe some should never ever take it. Um, it's I think it comes down to your calling. Does it call you?
Yeah.
Is it in your lineage, right? You can do research on yourself and really see that. And if it calls, then yeah, it's the way. Yeah, that's a very fine line, right? Yeah, it's a very
Yeah.
fine line. They're not for everyone. They can be tailored to they can be tailored to fit in everyone's perspective and everyone's little box, so you can reach people where they are, which is why I say there's a facilitator for every level of consciousness, right? Um, hmm, yeah, but it just I think when it comes down to it, it's for yeah, it's for I don't know. Right now, I think it's for the teachers, but until the teachers awaken and teach people the path of how to use this, and it's no longer in this dogma, um, then we'll be able to grow from there. Then we can have the discussions of, okay, how can entheogens and plant medicine be used to, initiate children into adulthood, right? So now, families are now being raised with the ideas of, okay, this is consciousness expanding. This isn't something I have to hide from my kids. If I want to go smoke a joint, they understand the relationship I have to it, because it's about expanding the mind, and they see how grounded we are, and they see how we operate and how nothing gets in our way, and how so it's a new level of awakening and living that has to happen. But that's not going to happen until the teachers awaken and lead the way. And a lot of teachers are being bamboozled and following Gaia and all this random shit, when they just need to figure out how to go inside and to break down that final barrier, because they're watching and digesting all these ideas that are coming from no one smarter than them. And once they get out of the way and realize that, they can be a humble vessel to that knowledge. But until then, it's just an ego game.
Yeah, it's it's interesting to watch it play out in the world where it's trying to be commercialized. And I'm curious to get your opinion, like having like a family lineage and having the relationship that you do and the understanding and the relationship that you do with entheogens and psychedelics. Do you see like the Western model as sort of a bastardization of it, as like, we're going to try to find a way to commodify this thing?
Not, like I said, it's very strategic. It found its way to enter the mass awareness, and it makes people in that, I guess, realm think that they have control, but really it has control, but it's letting them they think that they have it, right? So it's moving its way into society how it needs to, right? Because it takes the scientists to give the approval to have Mary Jane and Joe down the block to actually try it for PTSD, which then it just drops in their system. And about 2 years from that point, they start to meditate a little bit. They start to do X, Y, and Z because they're eating different, which then ripples down to the children. And so it's all it is. It can happen that quick. But so it's a benefit. At the same time, I see the limitations because we trust the ideas of the establishment so heavily that we just give it such control, and people will just accept whatever whatever they say it is. And that's just the limitation, because if you don't see it for what it is and not educated on it properly, you may never have the openness to receive what it even is in the first place. So it's very much of a set and setting, and the way you program your mind before you even enter this space is very critical, because you're either going to have it open to receive, or you're going to have these boxes up. Because a lot of people come and they're like, okay, well, intention. Well, that just puts a box up. You're basically going to this beautiful intelligence saying, hey, I only want you to work right here. When it's like, dude, get the hell out of the way, humble yourself to it and say, I know nothing. Show me what I have to heal, and show me what I need to learn about myself, and let it educate you. But that's the thing. We fear that consciousness. We fear another intelligence, and it's just programming that's constantly being chipped away. And that's why I have the Reverend in front of my name, because that voice and this relationship and me talking about the mushroom, really the way I see it is that's the voice of the other that we've all been waiting for. And that's what a lot of people spoke of and created religions off of. And once you see that you can become that and connect directly to it, it just clears a lot of the bogus. It clears a lot of the illusion. And you just see that you're here for a mission, and that it doesn't speak to everyone. And that if it's talking to you, you need to listen. And that when you listen, you get out of your way and you become a vessel that inspires others. And then you see, okay, I'm just here not to teach anything to anyone else, not to preach anything to anyone, but to be me, to do what I have to do, to listen. Because as I listen, the mushroom positions itself. The mushroom is very intelligent. And if you can allow it in, it will work on you. But it only works on you if you have a heart. If it knows that your intention is pure. If not, it's not going to open itself up. That's why I see these others, these masterminds who are positioning all psychedelic therapy and all this stuff, and it's all going to implode at some point. But just because it's going to implode doesn't mean you don't have to participate in it, right? Use the energy for what it is. Don't swim and paddle upstream. See where the energy is and use it like mycelium. Just grow with it, and but stay in your energy. Because I don't know about you, but with the medicine and being in flow, you can see everything that's happening. Um, yeah, it's just a fun game at this point.
Yeah, it's interesting to see where we are and to think of it as like a Trojan horse in a way. Like some people think they can get their arms around it to monetize it, but it's like trying to fight Mike Tyson. Like you think you have a plan, like you think you're gonna punch Mike Tyson, but he's gonna punch you right in the face. It's like
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason that there's a reason, in my opinion, why it's been around longer than us, and there's a reason why it's the teacher and we're the student. Like we can think all these things we want, and we can deny our own sort of education if we try to fight it. But there's a non-local consciousness. There is a higher intelligence on this planet that's desperately trying to communicate to us and is willing to communicate to you as an individual and help you if you're willing to listen and do the work. Is that fair to say?
Mhm. Absolutely. And a lot of people will be like, well, what's the work? The work, once you really get to the point of going through all your mindfulness and learning through all the modalities, the work is to be able to sit in communion with this powerful intelligence and to forget everything that you've ever been taught. To forget all that work that you did that made you a meditator, that got you tuned in, and this worked, and affirmations reprogram my mind, all that stuff. You got to leave it all, because if not, the intelligence is going to speak, and you're going to try to connect it to your little paradigm. Feel energetically what it means to dissolve yourself by choice, and then enter the communion with the other, and let it show you, let it rip you apart, let it pick you apart, let it do its work, because it will show you, okay, yeah, this was intelligent, and that did make sense, and this really doesn't apply to anything, and this was kind of keeping me trapped, and why am I even thinking about all of this stuff when I am it, so I can just be it, right? So you just get levels of clarity, right? That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, it makes sense. I've spoken with, and I've had these feelings myself too, where after large doses or sitting after a really deep insight comes, I get angry sometimes. I'll get angry at my family, or I'll get angry at the things that happen in life because I realize that I know what happened now. And on some level, it's cathartic to like know it. But then there's like this built up sort of animosity sometimes of like, oh my God, I don't want to be around them anymore. But there's these really big feelings that are hard to integrate afterwards. Sometimes it's animosity. Sometimes it's because you've been wrong. Sometimes it's because you've been right. How can someone, like, what do you do in that situation? Gabriel, do you have any advice for people that find themselves with a lot of emotion after a really big insight?
Yeah, you gotta channel it, right? So be give yourself up to the medicine, and it's going to show you who you are. It's going to give you your purpose. It's going to really outline and bring you back full circle to what you already knew. Once you tap into that, all energy, when I felt frustrations, I would put it all into the mission, right? Because the only thing that gave me satisfaction was, yeah, I would read the energy around me. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, so the only thing you can really do is dial into what your mission is. Like, for a while, when Finally Detached started, I didn't even know what I was doing, but I knew I was putting energy into something. And it started to just evoke itself, but I needed it because it was therapeutic. I needed to dump my energy into something. I, I, I needed something to prove, right? I came from the space where no one believed in me. So I felt this connection, and I needed to prove, and not just prove everyone else, but prove myself that I am not what everyone visualizes. Because even if they don't say it, I can tell it, I can read it. Very super intuitive in that way. So, the peace came when I just delve into the purpose. And then it became an obsession where I'm just obsessed on the mission, um, and everything evokes from that. Hmm.
Yeah, I feel like I'm on the same page of there's a drive and a purpose behind me that's almost unexplainable. And obsession is probably the best word for it. It's on some level, finally realize what you're capable of, and now you are trying to share it and build. And it's interesting. Do you think coming from a space of not being enough was necessary to be who you are today?
Absolutely. Yeah, because it was needed. I needed to feel not enough because I wasn't enough. To get to this space and to be this vessel, I wasn't doing what I need to do. And to get to the space where I need to go next to really position the mushroom so it can have a voice in this next phase, yeah, it's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take the separation. It's going to take finally detaching from all that shit to level up and to naturally float in that space. Because that's what it is. With the mushroom, it's like a giant hot air balloon. And all you need to do is cut the shit that's holding you back. There's nothing you have to do to rise. You just have to cut the shit that's holding you back and be a warrior in that regard. And that energy frees up space and you just rise. So it's more being aware of, okay, well, what's limiting me, right? And sometimes you just have to make a drastic jump or just do something to help you tune in that energy, right? Like right now, energy for me has been getting stale. So I'm able to create, I'm able to do my things, but as the energy feels stale, I feel anything I create is going to be coming from a stale energy. So then I'm like, okay, where am I going to be happiness? Where am I going to thrive? Where am I going to eat the best? Where am I going to be able to have fun? Because then that's going to be reflected, right? So I'm going to be going to Thailand. So I'll be living
Nice.
out in Thailand for a few months to be able to just create and continue, you know, doing everything that I'm doing. But I'm
Yeah.
listening to the energy, I'm not, I'm going with the flow, right? And I made things work in a certain space. And I like to do that because I don't like to run away from anything. I like to turn towards myself and say, okay, why do I want to go, or what's insufficient? Um, yeah, but now it's just all strategic, right? It just becomes very strategic once you become aware of your energy. And that's why you might get frustrated when you're around others because they don't see it. They don't have the vision. They don't. And because you had the vision, you know exactly how to get there. And you know the time it's going to take to get there. And you know all the thoughts you need to be having daily to even manifest, because you're a manifester and you're around people that like to talk manifestation, but really don't manifest shit. But you're making moves. So it's like, okay, you're like, you have to be wise on, all right, you gotta just you gotta cut it. You gotta cut it, or find strategic ways to cut off those energies while you're still being present. All right. And the mushroom will do that, right? So all that awareness and all those frustrations that you build, you kind of just get insight on that, and then take that into ceremony, into communion, or microdose with that and pray on that, and just let the answers come. Because in times it might show you like, okay, yeah, you're right, but at the same time life is short, so have empathy. And when you get into that vibration, then you see, oh, okay, I could still make it all work without pushing away, right? So you just sit with the energy and let it flow.
Yeah. It brings up a lot of questions for me, because when we look at creating or manifesting a community that we want to be in, or build a community, or build back a community, or create relationships with ourselves and other people and whatnot, the idea of trust comes up for me. And for me, I come from a background where I felt like trust was a word but not an action. And so I'm curious to get your understanding on how using entheogens and psychedelics can change your relationship with trust.
Mm. Yeah, working with the plant medicines are going to naturally make you more aware of yourself and more aware of others. So you're going to be able to read others much better as you access this energy and can read yourself better. Um, and when you read yourself better, you just start to see, you become a mirror, right? So if you
Yeah.
have a trust problem, then that means you probably weren't that trustworthy, or you
Mhm.
were, but people didn't see you as such, or you just start to, you know, turn the mirror toward yourself and say, okay, well, where was I not coming through, right? Or where was I falling short on myself, right? Because to put up with other people who are untrustworthy means that you're letting your shit fall short. And when you're on top of your shit and you're accountable with your stuff, it makes you sick to be around others who aren't accountable. Like it's contagious,
Yep.
right? So it's and then you start to see, okay, who's good for me, who's not. And if you're intelligent about your manifestation and you take it seriously and you know you're on a mission and you know life is short and you can die tomorrow, is it really worth wasting any time or energy? And if you have the answer, can you make that jump? And to me, making those jumps is the respecting of the medicine, respecting of the insight. And once you do that, it keeps going further and further and further. If not, it's going to keep being a giant loop. You're just stuck in a little loop until you accept that insight and integrate that insight, and then you can move forward from there. But once you are aware of how that all works, then you're just like, I don't have time to be sitting in loops. Make the decision and move. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It makes perfect sense to me. And I can, on some level, I think growing scares the people around you, especially when you begin leaving a community, because those people begin seeing what's wrong with me. Like when we talk about being a mirror as an individual and as someone who has built up a pretty significant following and seeing the changes in my life and spoken to lots of people with a similar story, when you begin accelerating and cutting some of the strings, finally becoming detached on some level, the people that you used to be around that were in your life, and maybe some people that you love, they start trying to pull you back down on some level. Like, hey, where are you going? What about me? And it's an interesting thing to cut the strings, like you're talking about, to cut and to become attached on some level. Can you share a story where you found yourself in a position where you had to cut some strings that were difficult?
Yeah, man. I'm constantly finding myself in that position, right? Because the mushroom, once you take in the mushroom and you allow it in, it shows you how you can cut out a lot of the middlemen.
Right.
And in this vessel, it showed me how to take it all by the balls and to do it all. Before the excuse was I always needed help. And then with the mushroom, the excuse became nothing. It just became, I just need to do it. Um, and hmm, as that happened, all the people that you reached out for help for in the beginning, they weren't there. But as you start to gain traction, they all start to show up. Um, and I found myself with a lot of those people, I had to strategically cut off that energy, even though it would have been very beneficial for finally detach and for the positioning. Because when I first visualized it, I saw people and where they fit. I saw their superpowers before they saw their own. So they had to be educated on who they were when I kind of already saw it, you know. Um, and everyone was on their journey. But now that everything comes around, it's like the energy already moved past. There's no going backwards, right? It's like, so that's energetically shit that had to be cut. Understanding positioning and what the mushroom is, right? And because the mushroom is a certain way, it needs to be seen a certain way. It can't just be in the mix with everything else, because once it's in the mix with everything else, it's seen as everything else. And that ain't what it is. So being strategic on who am I partnered with? Where is the mushroom seen when it speaks? Is it next to other people that are speaking shit that doesn't even rendezvous, right? So it's like how is it perceived? Where is it positioned? All that shit has been very important. And I find is becoming more important as the progression moves forward. Um, I don't know if that answers that question.
Yeah, one thing I find myself saying is that you can never go back. And I found that to be very comforting and help propel me forward, because a lot of the times I found myself or people I talk to get stuck in this loop of oh, then I have to go back and do that. And I'm like, no, you can never go back. You don't have to go back and do anything, because even if you do go back to something, you're not going back the same person. It's always growth. It's just whether you choose to embrace it or not. Like sometimes you do take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but that's not retardation. That's growth, and you have to be aware of that. Otherwise, it's very easy to sink into the sea of abyss and get stuck there and then get back in those negative feedback loops that you were talking about. But it does answer the question. I'm stoked for it. So another one we got coming from the audience is, what is the role of the sacred mushroom in reconnecting us with the earth and fostering ecological awareness and action?
Yeah, that's a great question. The mushroom wants to educate us to the point to see that there's nothing wrong with the earth, and what's fucked up with the earth is us. So if we can get out of the way, it will clearly show us that everything is perfect and that we're just, our mental sickness is what's kind of leading everything how it is. Yeah, I think the sacred mushroom and seeing it as sacred and approaching it in that way, with the right mindset, allows us the opportunity to receive that insight. If not, it's just the next thing to help you cure depression or whatever, and it's just going to be a hit and miss. Everyone's going to have tried it and gotten their little remedies from, and then you're going to have this one crazy person over here talking about it speaks, listen to it, like build a connection to it, get out of the way. It's the same story over and over and over again, so it's just it's for who it's for.
Do you think it's cyclical, like it comes in seasons, like the same way that for me mushrooms come in like these waves of, you have this beginning uprising, and then the first wave comes, and then you come back to reality, and this next wave comes? Do you think that happens with our consciousness outside of that use? Are we, and if so, are we getting to a point where this next wave is beginning to help evolve our relationship with spirituality on some level?
Absolutely. I think this next wave is definitely helping to evolve the spirituality. I'm very much a realist, so I like to learn from history, and no wave has ever cracked the code. So I just see it as, if you're intelligent enough to see this wave, then tap in and maximize the wave, because what's going to happen is the medicine is helping those who it's for position on the wave, because those who position correctly will have a voice in the future, and the mushroom wants those who it has infected to speak. And there's very few who have the balls to speak what it wants to put out. But seeing is believing, and positioning is important, and getting to a certain level of credibility is important, and not walking around barefoot and being a hippie is important, because you're woo-woo and you can't reach people over here. So it's like all these things you have to sacrifice yourself for the mission. Like me, I'd rather be in Thailand, living that hippie life, smoking copious amounts of marijuana, grow my medicine, and just having people, come out to me if they're called. And that's what's going to happen. But I always have to stay tapped in and create a vein for the chaos, because there's teachers in this, and they just don't even know it yet.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about having the courage and the faith to believe in yourself enough to create change, because that's who creates change, is the people that are willing to take chances, the people that are willing to believe in themselves and move outside the mainstream. When we look at the medical container that it's in, I'm really thankful that there's a lot of research going on in colleges, and there's a lot of really bright young people and older people that are working together to move the idea through the sort of university landscape. But it seems to me like a lot of the real changes come from the people on the outside. A lot of the real teachers are the people that have found and created a new idea outside of that container that's so safe and so regulated.
Yeah, absolutely. Like what I would say is I don't care about any excuse my French, I don't care about any fucking tests that scientists come up with to validate X, Y, Z. It's all fucking bullshit. Once you tap into the medicine, you see that they're explaining shit that you already knew. You already knew it. So what are you waiting for validation for? Right. So you have to get into full connection with yourself, because, you know, you realize that we're being controlled by people who don't even know who they are. And because they don't know who they are, they're so fucking indoctrinated in a system, in a way to look at things, and they don't even know where it came from. They don't ask why it came that way. And why is everyone thinking the same? There's no, and if they did, it's like, oh well, I may lose my credibility because science is dog eat dog. There's no scientists that are all making it and making good money. It's like this idea lives or this one gets destroyed, and everyone, that's all it is. So it's this constant game that honestly the mushroom doesn't have time for. That's why if people reach out to me like, hey, want to be a part of our study to help with this, that, I'm like, no, man, go find someone else, because we don't have time for that. The mushroom already knows, and it's looking for the knowers. It doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. It's been here for millennia. And if you're still trying to figure out how it works on the mind, then you're lost, dude. You're lost. You're not on the wave. You're way behind it. And that's okay, because that's where you need to be. But oh man, it is what it is, man. But for those who can hear me, the teachers, dude, move on from the science paradigm. Keep it, understand how it works. You know, you can even use it, but don't be glued to it. Um, yeah, I don't. It's just I don't know, man. They're so on it, but at the same time, they're so rigid to not even see what's right in front of them. So with science, you become very logical, and you can evaluate things very well, but you're just lacking awareness. Lacking awareness. It's like Alan Watts speaking about how, you know, they're going to keep going further and further, and they're going to split the atom, and then they're going to create the microscope to see further and further. And oh yeah, we see new levels to the universe, and we see this new material. But what's going to happen is they're just going to keep going further and further and further and further in, like a fractal. And how long are we going to keep fucking doing this? And for some strange idea tells me that the ones that know, that keep this whole thing in check, know that we're never going to find the answer. But we're living in this thing that if there's an answer, science is going to find it. Dude, it's such a joke.
Yeah, you know, in order for some things to, here's a good example. I was talking to a local entrepreneur here I sat down with him and we were talking about, he had this new business venture he was talking about, and he was telling me about how he was going to cure homelessness in Hawaii. And he had these really good ideas about expanding like shelters and getting grants to expand more shelters. And then this shelter can get more beds. And I'm like, it was precious. It's precious. He's telling me all about it and how we can keep expanding. And I'm like, man, it doesn't sound like you really want to solve it. It sounds like you want to expand the shelters and you want to put more beds in it, man. Like, and then you can get more grants for more money. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah. Shouldn't you be trying to solve the problem? Like, what? You haven't told me any part about what happens when you solve it. Because as soon as you solve it, all your money dries up and it goes away. So everything you're telling me is a way to keep it going. Like, you are not trying to solve it. You're trying to make money and benefit from this crisis. He was just like dead silent, like looking at me. Oh yeah. But I care about people, because I'm like, I'm not saying you don't, but what I don't understand is like, and that reminds me of science in so many ways. We're not trying to solve anything. We're just trying to ask the questions that keep it going. Like that seems to me to be a huge problem, not only in education and science, but in modern living. Like, we're not really trying to solve the problems that are affecting us. We're just trying to make money off of them or allow people to perpetuate living in these problems. And I agree with you. That is what altered states of awareness, and especially mushrooms and entheogens, are trying to show us. Like, hey, wake up. I've spoken to some incredible people that are getting funded to understand the 5-H2A receptor. And it's awesome work. I get it. But the question is, like, we don't even know about the brain. We don't thoroughly understand anything that we understand a lot, but we don't thoroughly understand the mechanisms of action. So even if you figure out how much it stimulates the 5-2-HAB receptor, then what? Like, what have you really figured out? Like, maybe
Right.
we should be figuring out how you feel about the world and why we have this epidemic of sadness and loneliness and lack of meaning. You know, like, and that's, you're not going to learn that from a 5-H2A receptor. And I think that's similar problems with science, man. Is that too far out there, or what do you think?
No, man, I think that's head on. You know, I think it's head on. It's just our perspective, right? The yeah, where we're able to put our attention. I think that's the war, and
Yeah,
whoever can focus on how you focus attention controls how you manifest.
I like that. Whoever controls on how you focus attention. And I think that, you know, when we look at mushrooms particularly, for me, they have really helped dissolve the boundaries, which have allowed me to put my attention elsewhere. Do you see that as, is that something that you apply in your teachings? I know you've got lots of courses on Udemy that go into different ways in which you can become aware of situations around you. But maybe we could shift gears and you could talk about some of the principles in which you want, that you put into your courses and that you put into people with whom you're helping.
Yeah. So one of the main teachings that I look to get across is to teach people that they are it, that there's nothing to, that everything's inside of them. So as no matter what modality you're doing, if it's yoga, if it's sound healing, if it's hypnotherapy, the barrier to making these things work is your mind. And once you understand what you are and how your mind works and how you have the power of choice, and how literally this choice is how you can put down a barrier to allow affirmations to work, or just to be sitting there for hours and not getting anything out of it. So it's a very energetic process. And that's what we like to teach, that it's not one thing, it's everything. And it's not even that it's everything, it is you. And it's like, that's the level of the awakening, because some, they're going to be tuned into meditation, and then they see, okay, there's power and there's frequencies and sound, and you know, ancient Egyptians used to use this, and how does this work on my body and chakras, and you start to go down this whole rabbit hole, which can be a trap in itself. But then the whole point of all these esoteric teachings is to draw you back to yourself, who you are. And they're there to help you navigate these deeper experiences, which is then now you're primed to work with psychedelics in the correct way, right? By going deep and by having an experience and being able to sit with yourself. A lot of people, when they go to that space, they're running away. They're trying to run away from themselves. They're running away from something. So the ability to sit with yourself, that's the whole point of, in my opinion, of yoga, of meditation, of all these practices. It's so you can sit with yourself. You can resonate with your true nothingness. And then once you're there, then you can be humble enough to receive the dialogue and not let it get to your head, because you finally understood, okay, I am, but it's not like I'm God. It's like, just I'm connected to everything, and everything is me. And then once you see that, you're out of the way. It's a little easier to be out of the way, because that's logical until you enter that deep space, and then you start to see, fuck, okay, I understood it logically, but I was still in my way. You don't know until you know.
Yeah, it's an interesting point of view. And even then, you know, you can go to the mountaintop and look down, but sometimes it's difficult to remain in that state. You know what I mean by that? Sometimes the picture is really clear, but after a week or 2 weeks, all of a sudden it just becomes calloused again. You know what I mean? Is that how you see, like, if you were, I know you're on, do you think a good sort of methodology for dosing is the large doses and then the micro doses afterwards? Or what do you think the relationship is for someone who may be trying to find their own way with the medicine?
Right. So I'm glad you asked that. I would say it's about building that relationship. Depending on where you're at, right? Everyone's different. All circumstances are different, right? So depending on if I'm speaking to a neophyte on energy, or if I'm talking to someone who has been doing meditation and they understand their stuff, that the process will be different, right? Microdosing will benefit anyone, because it will just start to increase your awareness, but
Yeah.
you're not going to get the full benefit of microdosing until you meet the other and demolish yourself, because then you can constantly come into communion with it instead of it being this vitamin that you take so you can be in alignment. It becomes this thing where, okay, I'm meeting the teacher and it's going to speak to me and I'm going to listen. So that's what I would say. I recommend sitting with the medicine when you're ready, deeply. That's how I would do it. Um, and we teach how to do this as well if people want to learn how to do it on their own. But to sit with the medicine and just to listen, even get to the point where you have no music, no nothing. You just kind of sit with the thoughts and let them get chaotic, and sit with yourself to the point where it starts to just dissolve itself. Um, and if you're not able to do that, if you're not able to sit with yourself, then don't just keep microdosing and work on the modalities, meditate, journal, right? It's just going to get you more aware of yourself, so then you can turn inwards, because then you'll be able to see, okay, this is where I'm in my own way. Once you see it, the medicine will see it, because it is you. So once you take it, it takes you. There's nothing you have to bring to the forefront. It knows everything that's in there. So just gather the data. Microdosing is so you can listen and so you can gather data. You can see, okay, this is where I'm in the way and I'm not really listening here. And why do I procrastinate here? And this and that and that and that. Now go back to it and say, this is where I'm defective. This is where I've been a sinner.
Hmm.
You see the religious part of it? See,
Yeah.
if you take it with reverence, it will that's the key. But it's how do you teach people that without doing that? So that's been the strategy over here, right? Has been, how do you teach people to have this connection, as I would say it, this closer connection to God? But how do you do that without saying that? And that's what's being positioned, because yeah. Mhm.
It's really well said. And when I look at like the Western idea, just my upbringing, I went to a Sunday school when I was a young kid for a few years, and um, I've periodically gone to different churches to listen to cool sermons from time to time. And they, how do you teach someone how to pray when most people have never heard God talk to them? There's a difference there. When you sit down in front of your bed and you say, please God, I need some money. Please God, I gotta find the right girl for me. Please God, you start asking all these questions. But most people never hear actual voices or are given visions to those answers. And on some level, I think entheogens give you a roadmap of how to pray, because after maybe an hour and all the settling down, you can say something and you will be given an answer. It may not be the answer you want, but that is the foundation of prayer, when you speak to a higher intelligence and you're given guidance. And I think that is what's happening in some of these journeys. I know for you without a doubt, and I know for me too. And like, that's what I would, if I could help share an insight with people that may be listening to this about microdosing, spirituality, and theogens, is that it's a form of prayer. And you find yourself in communion with a higher intelligence where there are answers, but it can be scary. Like, have you ever found yourself in a time where all of a sudden you hear a voice or you see something and you're frightened? And if so, what are some tools people can do to maybe calm themselves down at that point?
Yeah, when you go deep enough with the medicine, it's going to test you, because it wants to make sure that you have a
That's a
strong
great way
mind.
to say it. Yes.
Yeah, it's going to test you, and it's going to bring up your deepest, darkest fears, and it's just going to make you, it's going to tell you things, and you just have to be strong enough to say no. And if you can do that, it will be like, oh, I like, you're a bad motherfucker. I like you. You're smart. Okay. All right. You got your own mind, but you're
Yeah.
open to let me work. I like that.
Next level.
Right. So that's very important. Hmm. Ask me the last part of that question one more time.
So in the event you find yourself in some tricky spots where maybe you're trying on ideas that scare you, you're trying on
Mhm.
personalities that scare you.
Mhm. Yeah. So the medicine will go as deep as you ask, right? So once you start to have the reverence with it, and once you see that it speaks, how much validation do you need? Right?
Mm,
So it's going to answer what you ask. And if you're, it- so be careful on what you ask, because if you're not ready to receive that answer, it's going to take time to integrate. So my scariest moments were situations like that, where I just had to
yeah.
integrate what it was telling me. Um, and yeah, but it's all meant to be. And if you sit with yourself and sit with your emotions and understand that your feelings are illusion, right? Like, feel what you need to feel, because it's going to all be dissolved. So don't react off your feelings, just feel them. I think that's important. Um, yeah, and if something happens, have your things there with you, right? You might need a sitter, you might need access to someone just in case, even if that means a phone call or being able to call someone. Um, yeah, and just speak deeply to it. If it starts to turn on you, then ask it to take care of you, right? I don't know. I find it's very co-creative. So you got to learn how to conjure and work with it. And if you can do that, it guides you. It'll test you, but it will take care of you and comfort you. It's very strategic. And if you don't know this, and this sounds like kind of oblivious, then we might need to just have a phone call, a discussion, so we can really decipher where you're at and how to integrate and develop this relationship with where you are. Right. Hmm.
Yeah, it makes sense. I found that just being able to sit with it and like, okay, we're going here. Let's think about it then. And the acceptance of whatever scares you will the embracing acceptance of the thought that scares you will be the very thing that drives it away. You know
Hmm.
what I mean by that? Like, okay, oh
Hmm.
man,
Hmm.
okay, yep, you're right, I
Hmm.
am.
Right.
This is very uncomfortable. I don't want to think about. Okay, but yeah, let's say
Hmm.
I am, and then all of a sudden, doesn't.
Hmm.
Okay, on to the next thing. It is a
Yep.
test, and it is
Yep.
strategic, and it's sort of like a sensei coming to you with 5 blocks. Okay, can you break these? Let's see. Okay, here's
Hmm.
10. Oh,
Hmm.
at what point are you going to be frightened?
Hmm. Right.
And it's if you can think that to yourself, and you'll start laughing, and then that's like, okay, get it out of here. The guy's laughing about it. Get it out of here. Let's find something else. It's
Right.
fascinating to think about, but
Right.
it's okay. Here we go. We got another one from the audience right here. What responsibilities do psychedelic facilitators have in confronting and dismantling societal norms and injustices, if any?
You know, it's hard to answer that question,
It is.
because I feel like I would need a specific type of framing to be able to answer that, and I don't even have any framing to answer that. Once I gave it to the mushroom took this vessel over, and that intelligence I trusted enough to answer all these questions. And it does. It's like it's not going to put you in a position to make money while destroying the earth. Like it's all connected, where it strategically wants you to do this because it leads to this, which is actually helping this over here, which in turn is going to put you in a position to give it all away for free when everyone else is coming in to start charging for it. Right. So it's like it's all very I don't know how to answer that. I think you just being your most authentic self, and you being a teacher, and if you're a facilitator, I would call you a teacher, because I wouldn't facilitate any medicine that did not speak to me. This isn't the type of thing where it's like, oh, that's a cool career. I want to just sit for people. That's what this will turn into. And like I said, there's a facilitator for every level of consciousness. But I think if you're just authentic and you become a vessel to who you are, you start to see that there are many, many injustices, and there always has been, and there always will be, and that there's no fighting anything, because the time that you know, maybe it's our time now, and then once we fix this for our people, now it's someone else's time later, and it's just a continuous thing where what's really the problem? Is the problem that there's so much injustice, or is the problem that no one has woken up to who they are? Because if they wake up to who they are, like Control in the Matrix, they can just say no, and they can start to create from that place. So it's to me, the medicine is going to educate people finally. I think it's the education that we've not been taught, and it's the education on how to cut out the middleman. It's the education on seeing through the illusion. And once you have that awareness, people start to ask the questions. And when they ask the questions, you know, ask and you shall receive, right? Now the student is ready to receive the teacher. And then they'll see, fuck, man, all the answers I needed were around me the whole time. I just didn't look, or I had some belief in me that was keeping me back to think, oh, that's going to be hard, because you were raised to think, oh, life's not easy, right? So it's there's levels to it, man. There's levels to it, because once you wake up, you just see, you see, and then you want to put yourself in a position to not be affected by things, right? Like for me, what I'm obsessed with is the fact that, dude, we all have plastic in our body because we've been eating plastic, you know? So, you know, I was at my grandparents' house this past week, and I see that they wash dishes with a sponge. And I saw research that the sponges that you use to wash dishes, that's where you're eating microplastics from.
Mm.
Right. So I start to see, wow, okay, like this is something that's only affecting a certain class of people and below, because rich people ain't fucking using these sponges. They're just putting it inside their dishwasher like normal people, right? That ours was broken. So I was just able to see that. And I was able to see, like, man, there's so much more stuff that's happening that's so much more detrimental than how a class of people is seen as. I don't know. It's like, while the attention and awareness is over here, we're fucking being poisoned over here. And it's like, man, that's in its own thing. And then around here, around the world, there's genocide happening.
Mm.
Like people are fucking dying, and we're worried about reparations. I don't know, dude. You know, it's just, it's awareness, bro. I think it's and that's why a lot of this is, I stay quiet with a lot of stuff, you know, because I'm, you know, I come from the ones that I see through all of it. My people were here first. We all got, every single person, every single race has gotten their ass handed to them. And it's about seeing through it and seeing through history and seeing how does it repeat itself. And am I wise enough to accept the fact that, dude, history repeats itself, and that there's people at play, and you're either going to get with it or you're going to be raising a pitchfork the whole time. And maybe the only way to make change is to get with it, because now you're in the game. When before you thought you were making change, but really you're just making noise, and noise didn't do anything, because noise doesn't come with power. You can't make shit move. When these people over here, they make a decision and something moves, and they can control the paradigm that you're holding your pitchforks in. So it's about understanding the game and understanding how to really obtain power inside of it. And the mushroom is looking for influence. The mushroom wants to make shit move. The mushroom just doesn't want to be a mosquito.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about the ideas of, you know, what you're seeing, you know, how the genocide playing out in the Middle East is the same genocide that played out in Manifest Destiny, and the same genocide that played out on the continent of Europe. Or, you know, it, in some ways you begin seeing, oh, you can see the future and the past simultaneously. And I think that that's another aspect of what, you know, altered states of awareness and mushrooms do, is they teach you to break down the chain that is time that you were born with. Like, we have been given this really narrow lens to view the world through time. Like, everybody's got a wristwatch on, everybody's got clocks. Like, it's this fundamental prison that we're in. But in reality, you can see the future and the past playing out. And if you can begin to see it on that level, you can make changes in your life that will allow you to become the best version of yourself, because you're not really being as imprisoned by time as society wants you to be. Society wants you to go to these institutions and get into debt and then become a wage slave forever, so that you become a slave forever. You're a slave to time. You trade all your time for a handful of dimes. And I think a lot of part of what spirituality and, religiosity on some level, but mostly spirituality and these mushrooms are doing, is trying to help each individual renegotiate their ideas of time. What's your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. To be able to enter that realm with the medicine, to receive the downloads, that
Right.
awareness of understanding that time is an illusion had to be understood to begin with, right? Those were part of those neophyte stages, that the work that had to be done. I think it's breaking down the barriers for us to see and accept that,
Yeah.
the future is the past is the future. To surrender to, like a psychedelic journey, it's to accept, right? Because through the accepting, you then have control. So what does that mean in this larger space, right? Does that mean accepting and moving with it and gaining control by wearing the mask of it, right? And being able to move with it. It's very, very, very interesting. I see that if you can see the past, then you can see the future. And like I say, I'm a realist. The mushroom made me a realist. The mushroom has shown me that maybe we aren't the ones that do it, and that maybe we're here to plant seeds to awaken the people, which builds the contrast, which then really demolishes everything and is able to start new. Or at the same time, I'm able to see, like, maybe this is just the path of this realm. And this realm, the greatest teacher is to accept and to surrender to what is, because I don't know, strange feeling. I feel like this is a planet for us to be educated on, right? This is not, it can be heaven on earth once you understand how to create. But at the same time, when you're realistic with yourself, it's not heaven on earth, because you get to experience at someone else's or some other else's energy's expense. It's always a give and take, right? So something has to be taken for you to be able to give. And so it's all, once you wake up to that, you see that, okay, it's never going to be heaven. So why are we pushing to make it heaven? You turn towards yourself and you're like, how do I create heaven in this hell? And once you turn that mirror, then if your intention is good and you have a good heart, you're a good-hearted person, you're like, okay, how do I create heaven so I can perpetuate heaven for others? So I can actually leave a legacy of showing how to do this in this without giving my energy to it, right? How do I create and not be a slave to, but how do I still get to where they're at? How do I do that? Right. And that's just the mushroom. That's just the medicine doing its work, But the medicine has made me very realistic to see that my job is just to wake up the teachers. And does that mean the world's going to be saved? I don't know. I love the world. I think this is for our spirituality. It's for us to get closer with the other. But I think it's time for us to be detached about the outcome. It's time to wake up that maybe we're too late. And now it's up for us as individuals to develop as close of a connection as we can with the other before our time comes, because it's coming. And we can act like it's not, and we can, that's I don't know. That's where the mushroom lives in me, and that's why it has that anxiety of get to the next level, separate yourself from these people, do that XYZ, 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 because it is trying to save the people who listen to it. It is trying to save the ones for the future, because the ones that it speaks to, we're the saving grace for the future once it all fucking destroys. So it's trying to teach us how to live with what's about to come. And I don't know about for you, but it's saying you got to be prepared. Like if you don't have, your underground bunker, you don't have this, you don't have that, you don't have this, you don't have that, you can't run away from it. Like you said, manifest destiny, it's spreading everywhere. The way we're fighting in overseas, it's because they don't accept what we see through, and we have to live into it because our ancestors accepted it. They're not accepting it of it. But if you don't accept it, you're a terrorist, right? So it's dude, it's deep. It's spreading everywhere. There's no running from it. There's no even fighting against it. Right? It's like the Bob Marley song. Yeah, they ain't no use. Nobody can stop them now. I mean, he was singing that shit in the 70s, bro. Like,
Yeah.
so like, are we gonna wake up and just accept it and then just be that for ourselves? And then that's heaven on earth, because now there's nobody worrying about anyone else. And if no one worries about anyone else, then there's no, everyone takes care of themselves. I don't know. I've never been a better vessel for someone else until I took care of myself. And before, I wanted to take care of everyone, but I couldn't do shit because I didn't have my stuff figured out.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a funny thing. It's funny.
Yeah, I'm always partial to the free yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds, right? And it speaks to that
Absolutely.
idea of ourselves. We live in these top-down authoritarian structures where people argue this is for the greater good, but the greater good is always for the people at the top, it seems like. And the real answer is, like you said, it seems to be to each individual to figure out how to become the best version of themselves. And it's scary. It's hard to work on yourself and take risks, but it's better to take a risk and do something meaningful than to stay where you are and be miserable. And I think that is this sort of revolution that is happening, is this people that are going like, you know what? I watched my parents do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And I don't care about the consequences. I'm going to find something meaningful. And if that means me, being this idea for a little bit, then fine. But there's something so powerful in an individual who's willing to have the courage to take a step down the path less taken, or the road less traveled. You really begin to grow, and you really begin to become the person that you're supposed to be. And that is when you can begin helping out the people, is when you figure that out. Like, hey, there's another way. Come here, let me show you this thing. And I see so much of that in the work you're doing, man. I see you, hey, I found this thing, guys. Let me show you what I found over here. And I think that is contagious. I think that's why so many of your courses are taking off. And I think it's contagious. And we need it now more than ever, is people showing another way. And I'm stoked you're doing it, man. And I know we're kind of coming up on the hour here, but is maybe you could, before I let you go, you could tell people what you got coming up, where they can find you, and what you're excited about.
Yeah, you guys can find me at www.finallydetached.com. What I have coming up is going to be vlogging a bunch in Thailand. So my goal is to go out there and find the mushroom. And what that means is finding it literally in people, places, and things, right? So just going to vlog that experience. So stay tuned and tune in to the YouTube channel. So at Finally Detached, we provide a lot of mindfulness, a lot of sound healing. My goal was to provide a lot of free content to help people with their ceremonial journeys, right? So if you're going to microdose, or if you're going to journey on your own, everything's there where you can kind of tap into that. And if you want that content for free, then you can actually, for free with no ads, that's what I meant to say. You can just go to our website at Finally Detached, and there's a link to Finally Detached University. But yeah, what I'm excited about is Thailand, man. I'm excited to get inside the creation flow, and start tapping into possibly creating some documentaries, right?
Yeah.
That next level of creation. Since I've maintained being the vessel and walking and cutting out the middlemen, people showed up that are actually in tune, and that are the mushroom, and that are able to bring superpowers into the mix of where I lacked, right? So they're able to pick up where I drop things and cover some holes. So we're the mushroom is on to the next stage. Mhm.
I'm excited to check it out and follow the journey, man. And I, as well as many other people, are appreciative of the work you're doing out there. And I hope people will go down to the show notes. They'll check out the courses you got. They'll go to Finally Detached and check out and reach out to you if they're in need of something, or they're searching, or if what we said today resonates. I would invite you to go down to the show notes and reach out to Rev Gabe. So that's all we got for today. Hang on afterwards. Rev Gabe, I'll talk to you for a moment. But everybody else, I hope you have a beautiful day. That's all we got. Aloha.